Avoidants fear losing independence, not love. At first glance, this can be hard to understand, especially if you are someone who craves closeness and believes love is proven through constant connection. To the avoidant, however, the world feels different. Their core need is freedom, the sense that they can move, think, and live without being trapped or consumed by another person. When intimacy begins to deepen, their instinct is not to reject love itself, but to retreat in order to protect that independence. This retreat is often mistaken for rejection, coldness, or even a lack of care. In reality, it is simply a defense mechanism built over time. The avoidant heart carries love like anyone else, but it is shielded by a fear that too much closeness means losing oneself. Think about it: a person who fears rejection runs toward reassurance, but a person who fears engulfment pulls back to breathe. Both responses are rooted in fear, but of different things. The avoidant is not running from you, they are running from the idea that being with you could erase them. They believe that if they surrender completely to love, they may lose the boundaries that protect their sense of self. That is why pressure, neediness, or control only heightens their resistance. It reinforces the story in their mind that love equals entrapment, that intimacy means the end of freedom. The harder someone clings, the faster the avoidant distances. It is not because they lack love, but because they feel love could cost them too much. And yet beneath the shield, there is often a deep longing. Avoidants still desire connection, affection, and loyalty. They want to feel safe enough to open their hearts, but safety for them looks different. It is not built through constant pursuit or endless reassurances. It is built when they discover they can be close to someone and still remain themselves. When their partner respects their need for space without judgment, when she doesn't interpret their retreat as rejection, but as breathing room, the avoidant starts to feel something rare: trust. That trust allows them to lean in slowly, cautiously, but more meaningfully than ever before. The truth is, love for the avoidant is not about fighting to keep distance forever. It is about learning that closeness and independence can coexist. The right kind of partner shows them that they do not have to choose between the two. She shows through her actions, her patience, and her boundaries that love is not a cage, but a space where freedom can flourish alongside intimacy. Over time, the avoidant realizes that love is not the enemy of independence, but the extension of it. True connection does not take away their freedom. It enhances it by giving them a safe place to land. So when you encounter an avoidant, remember this: their fear is not a lack of love, but a misunderstanding of it. They are protecting themselves from losing what they value most, their sense of self. When they find someone who honors that, who gives them both space and presence, their heart can finally rest. And once they feel secure, their love runs deep, steady, and loyal. They may resist in the beginning, but when they let go, they love with a strength that lasts a lifetime, precisely because they know how much freedom it took to choose it. The right woman doesn't chase or pressure, because she understands that true connection cannot be forced into existence. Many people believe that persistence, constant reminders of affection, or endless attempts to pull someone closer will eventually break through their walls. But what happens in reality is the opposite. Pressure makes an avoidant retreat further, and chasing turns love into a game of pursuit and escape. The woman who knows her worth chooses a different path. She is present, she is open, and she is warm, but she does not surrender her dignity to the illusion that persistence is the same as love. She allows the other person to come to her willingly, knowing that love is only meaningful when it is chosen, not demanded. This woman's power lies in her calm self-assurance. She doesn't rush intimacy because she recognizes that depth takes time. She doesn't beg for attention or affection because she knows her value does not depend on another person's response. Instead, she cultivates her own life, her passions, her friendships, her goals, and in doing so, she becomes naturally magnetic. The avoidant sees in her someone who does not suffocate, but instead inspires curiosity. Her energy says, "I am here, but I am not waiting idly. I have my own life, and you may join it if you choose." That quiet confidence often awakens the avoidant's desire to move closer, not out of pressure, but out of genuine attraction. There is also a deep wisdom in her restraint. Chasing often comes from fear, the fear of losing the connection, the fear of not being enough, the fear that without constant effort the bond will slip away. But she knows that fear-based love never lasts. Pressure might produce short-term compliance, but it will never produce long-term intimacy. By refusing to chase, she allows space for trust to grow. By resisting the urge to control, she communicates something profoundly powerful. I trust you to meet me where I am. If you don't, I will still be whole. This trust disarms the avoidant. For perhaps the first time, they are faced with someone who will not trap them, someone who allows freedom without resentment, someone who does not measure love in the language of demands. What makes her stand apart is not indifference, but balance. She does not withhold affection to manipulate, nor does she flood the relationship with overwhelming need. Instead, she gives what feels natural and then she steps back. She allows silence to be silence, distance to be distance, knowing that love cannot bloom in a climate of desperation. Her presence feels safe precisely because it is free of pressure. To an avoidant, this becomes rare and precious. The fear of being smothered fades, replaced by the realization that here is a woman with whom they can breathe. And in that space of ease, closeness becomes possible. Ultimately, her refusal to chasers or pressure is an act of deep self-respect. It is the declaration that she values mutual choice over one-sided effort and partnership over pursuit. And it is in this space of balance, where love is neither demanded nor withheld, that the avoidant finally discovers something they rarely experience: the freedom to love fully without fear of losing themselves. And once they find it, they cling to it, because it is the kind of love that feels both liberating and enduring. Balance is the key when it comes to building a connection that lasts, especially with someone who carries an avoidant nature. Too much pressure and they retreat, too much distance and the relationship loses meaning. It is in this delicate middle ground that love can truly thrive. Balance is not about perfection or about getting everything right every time. It is about creating a rhythm between closeness and space, understanding when to lean in and when to step back, and learning that both of these moves can coexist without conflict. A relationship with balance feels less like a tug of war and more like a dance, where each step respects the individuality of the other while still moving toward shared harmony. When one person constantly demands closeness, the avoidant feels suffocated, as though their independence is being stripped away. On the other hand, when the partner pulls away completely to avoid rejection, the relationship begins to wither. Balance means knowing how to show love without making it conditional, how to be available without being intrusive, and how to walk away from neediness while still offering support. This balance builds trust, and trust is the one element that allows an avoidant to lower their walls. It reassures them that they are free to be themselves and that love will not become a cage. Balance is also about emotional energy. A partner who understands balance doesn't give to the point of exhaustion, nor do they hold back so much that intimacy starves. They communicate with honesty, not manipulation. They can express their needs without making them sound like demands. This emotional steadiness becomes a model for the avoidant, showing them that intimacy is not something to fear, but something that can coexist with freedom. When a partner consistently demonstrates this equilibrium, the avoidant begins to relax into the relationship. Instead of bracing themselves for pressure or disappointment, they start to feel that love can be consistent and safe. It is important to realize that balance does not mean silence in the face of pain. It does not mean tolerating neglect or excusing harmful behavior. True balance has boundaries. It draws clear lines about what is acceptable while still keeping the door open to love and understanding. This mixture of strength and kindness is irresistible to someone who has spent their life fearing that closeness would cost them their identity. By showing that love can exist alongside autonomy, the balanced partner rewrites their story of intimacy. Balance at its heart is a choice. It is the daily decision to neither cling nor withdraw, to neither demand nor disappear. It is choosing patience over panic, composure over chaos, and respect over control. It is the practice of giving space when needed while still holding space for connection. It is the art of showing up with presence rather than pressure. This balance transforms relationships, turning what could have been a fragile, short-lived spark into a flame that endures. For the avoidant, it is this balance that finally convinces them love can be safe, and for their partner, it is this balance that ensures they never lose themselves while giving their heart away. She does not take distance personally because she understands that every individual has their own rhythm when it comes to intimacy. While some people lean in closer when they feel love, others instinctively lean back, not because they want to reject the relationship, but because closeness triggers their fears of being engulfed. A woman who thrives with an avoidant personality knows this truth deeply. She realizes that the avoidant's withdrawal is not a reflection of her worth, nor is it an attack on her. It is simply his way of regaining equilibrium. Instead of reacting with panic or anger, she responds with composure. She reminds herself that his step back is not abandonment, but a moment to breathe. This mindset allows her to remain grounded rather than pulled into an emotional spiral. When she does not take distance personally, she avoids the cycle that ruins many relationships with avoidance, the anxious pursuit. Most people, when faced with withdrawal, react by chasing harder, demanding answers, or trying to fill the silence with reassurance. But this only drives the avoidant further into retreat. By staying calm, she communicates a powerful message: I see you, I respect your space, and I am not threatened by your need for distance. This message disarms the avoidant because what he fears most is the suffocation of expectations. In her steadiness, he discovers safety, the assurance that he can step back without losing the connection entirely. Her approach does not mean she tolerates neglect or accepts poor treatment. On the contrary, it comes from strength. She is secure enough in herself to know that someone else's behavior does not define her value. She doesn't spiral into questions like, "Did I do something wrong?" Or, "Why isn't he calling me back?" Instead, she reframes the situation. "This is how he manages his emotions. I can give him room while still honoring my own needs." That shift in perspective prevents resentment from building. It also prevents the avoidant from feeling trapped in a cycle of guilt and shame for needing space. Her calmness removes the battlefield and replaces it with neutrality, where genuine connection has a chance to grow. This kind of resilience becomes magnetic. Because she doesn't make distance about herself, she allows the avoidant to return freely when he is ready. And when he does, he comes back not to a storm of accusations, but to a woman who held her ground with dignity. That experience builds trust. Over time, the avoidant begins to see that this woman is not like others who equate love with constant proximity. He realizes that with her, love feels expansive, not restrictive. This is the rare kind of connection that makes an avoidant stay because it honors both closeness and freedom. Ultimately, not taking distance personally is an act of emotional maturity. It reflects a deep self-assurance and an understanding of how different attachment styles shape behavior. By holding her boundaries without punishing or chasing, she creates the exact conditions under which an avoidant can finally relax into love. She becomes the exception, the one person who makes him believe that a lifelong bond is possible, precisely because she does not let his distance shake her sense of worth. Security is magnetic because it carries with it a calm power that cannot be faked, rushed, or imitated. When someone is deeply rooted in who they are, when their sense of worth is not dependent on the fleeting attention or approval of others, it creates an energy that people naturally gravitate toward. For the avoidant who so often struggles with the fear of being consumed, judged, or trapped, this sense of security is irresistible. It speaks louder than any declaration of love or promise of commitment because it removes the pressure of performance. Instead of feeling cornered, the avoidant feels safe enough to stay. Imagine two people meeting. One desperately wants to be chosen, bending over backwards to prove their worth, constantly checking for reassurance, clinging tightly out of fear of being left behind. The other enters with quiet confidence, grounded in the knowledge that whether this connection blossoms or fades, their value remains unchanged. The avoidant may initially be drawn to the comfort of attention, but over time the neediness becomes suffocating. What truly captures their heart is the second type, the person who radiates inner stability, who does not fall apart when given space, who respects boundaries without resentment. This security does not chase, it attracts. The magnetism of security lies in how it transforms the atmosphere of a relationship. An avoidant who feels constantly pursued will run faster, convinced that love equals suffocation. But an avoidant who encounters security feels something they are not used to, the ability to breathe inside closeness. Security says, you can step back if you need to, and I will not collapse. You can come close if you're ready, and I will meet you with openness. That balance makes the avoidance defenses soften because it reframes love as freedom, not entrapment. The safe presence becomes a quiet anchor that gives them permission to explore intimacy without fear. This is why security is not loud or boastful. It doesn't need to prove itself. It's in the way someone holds themselves during conflict, refusing to play games or beg for attention. It's in the way they can walk away from disrespect without bitterness, knowing that dignity is worth more than temporary attachment. It's in the way they can love fully, but also say, I will not lose myself to keep you. That steadiness communicates something profound. This is a person who cannot be shaken by your walls, and therefore they are safe enough to let inside them. When an avoidant finally experiences this kind of presence, the attraction deepens into something lasting. Security is not just magnetic in the beginning, it is sustaining over time. Infatuation fades, excitement cools, but security grows more valuable as the relationship matures. It becomes the quiet glue that holds the bond together. For the avoidant, who is always on guard against losing themselves, discovering a love that honors both closeness and independence feels like the one thing they didn't know they were searching for. And once they find it, they realize they would rather spend their life with this kind of partner than risk losing them to someone else who does not carry the same strength. That is the true power of security. It does not demand, it does not chase, it does not crumble under distance. It simply stands firm, and in that firmness, it draws even the most guarded souls closer than they ever thought possible. True bonding requires freedom and devotion together, because when one is missing, the relationship either suffocates or falls apart. Too often people believe that devotion alone is enough to keep two hearts tied together. They pour in endless love, constant attention, and total sacrifice, thinking this is the ultimate proof of commitment. Yet if there is no freedom in that devotion, it begins to feel heavy, like a chain instead of a gift. The human spirit longs to breathe, to move, to know that love is chosen freely, not demanded or trapped. Without that space, even the deepest devotion can start to feel like control. On the other hand, freedom without devotion is just distance disguised as independence. It leaves the relationship hollow, as though the two people are living parallel lives instead of sharing one. A bond cannot grow if each person is more committed to protecting their own solitude than nurturing the connection they have chosen. Freedom is beautiful when it is coupled with the promise of devotion, the unshakable certainty that no matter the space between, the loyalty remains unbroken. It is this combination that gives a relationship its true strength, because both partners know they are not losing themselves, but rather expanding together. When a person can wake up each day knowing they are free to be themselves, yet also knowing someone is fully devoted to them, an extraordinary trust develops. That trust is what turns ordinary love into lifelong love. It is what makes the avoidant, the one who fears losing autonomy, realize they no longer have to choose between love and independence. They see that in the right relationship, they can have both. This revelation transforms them. Instead of pulling away, they lean in. Instead of retreating, they build. The devotion reassures them that love is stable, and the freedom assures them that love is safe. Real devotion is not about clinging, nor is real freedom about running away. It is the balance between showing up fully and allowing space fully. A partner who understands this balance becomes irreplaceable because they give what few others can, the gift of love without chains. They say, I am here, I am committed, but I do not need to trap you to keep you. And in response, the avoidant who once guarded their heart so fiercely begins to open it. They offer back the same devotion, the same respect for freedom, and in that mutual exchange, a bond forms that is almost unbreakable. Lifelong bonding then is not about constant closeness or total detachment. It is about the dance between freedom and devotion, a rhythm that both partners learn to move to together. This is the kind of bond that does not collapse under pressure nor fade in distance, because it is built on trust, respect, and the understanding that love grows best when both people can breathe and both people can belong. True bonding is not a choice between freedom or devotion. It is the beautiful marriage of both, and when found, it becomes the foundation of love that lasts a lifetime.